Okay, we are going to talk about some more applications involving quadratic equations, and in this video we'll focus on area problems. When you're solving the area problems, there are a few steps that will help make this a lot easier. The first thing is to draw a diagram and label the sides. Once you have that, go ahead and use the formula for area to set up an equation. You need to multiply it out and then make sure it's equal to 0 so you can solve by factoring or the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and do the first problem. The width of a rectangular flower garden is 3 less than its length. So more information there. Okay. If the area of the flower garden is 54 square meters, find its width and length. Okay. Draw a picture first. It helps. So here's my rectangular garden. It tells me the width is 3 less than the length. So if my length is L, my width would be 3 less than that. So I'm going to subtract 3. Okay. So there's my diagram. The total area is 54 square meters. So to find the area of a rectangle, you're going to do length times width. Okay. That equals your area. So that's how I set up my equation. Length is L, width is L minus 3, and that equals 54. From here, before we can solve it, we need to do two things. We need to multiply, so either distribute or FOIL, depending on what you have there. So L squared minus 3L equals 54. The second thing is make sure it's equal to 0. So I need to do minus 54 on both sides. So I have L squared minus 3L minus 54 equals 0. Once I get to this point, the area problems we're giving you are pretty nice. You can actually factor them, so you don't have to worry about the quadratic formula. You could enter this into your graphing calculator and find your zeros, and that would help give you your L or your length. But I think it's definitely faster if you know how to factor to do it that way. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to make our x. And since there's not a leading coefficient in front of our L squared, we can just put the negative 54 on the top of our x. The bottom is going to be our negative 3. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 54, add up to negative 3. So I have negative 9 and positive 6. The order does not matter. Remember that since there's nothing here, my leading coefficient's 1, I don't need to do anything extra. I can just go right to my parentheses. So I'm going to do L, and I have a negative 9 and a positive 6. Once you get to this point, don't forget you actually need to solve it. So L minus 9 equals 0. L plus 6 equals 0. We're going to add 9 to both sides to get 9. Subtract 6 from both sides to get negative 6. So our length could either be 9 or negative 6. One of those doesn't make sense, so we're going to eliminate it. It's not possible for length to be negative, so we're not going to worry about this one. That gives us an answer for a length of 9 meters. Remember, when we measure length, it's a singular unit, so meters. When we measure area, it's a square unit, so meters squared. The question actually asks us to find length and width. So once I have my length, I'm going to go back up to the diagram here. If my length is 9, that means my width should be 9 minus 3, which gives me 6. So width is 6, length is 9. Next problem will seem similar to begin with, but the factoring is going to be a little different. Okay, so for this one, the length of a rectangular flower garden is 3 meters more than twice its width. And we're looking at an area of square meters. So I'm going to draw my diagram. This one tells me the length is 3 more than, so it means I add 3. Twice the width is 2w. So there's my diagram. The area is 27. So what we're going to do is set up our equation for area, width times length, or length times width, however you'd like to write it. So w times 2w plus 3 equals our area, which is 27 square meters. We're going to go ahead and distribute for our first step to get 2w squared plus 3w, and then subtract 27 from both sides. To get 2w squared plus 3w equals negative 27. This time when we factor, because there's a leading coefficient here, we need to remember to multiply the negative 27 times 2 instead of just putting the 27 up there. So we get negative 54 on the top again. We have a positive 3 this time on the bottom. So we're going to use the same factors. We had 9 and 6, but the 9 is going to be positive this time, and the 6 will be negative. Again, since that's up front, the 2, we need to rewrite this using AC split. So the 2w squared will stay there. We're going to split this with the 9w and negative 6w, and then my c is going to stay the same. I can go ahead and make two groups. And what the only thing I can divide by in the first group is w. So I'm left with 2w plus 9. And then for the second group, I actually divide by a negative 3. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. Negative 27 divided by negative 3 is positive 9. Since my two groups match here, I'm going to bring that out front. So I have 2w plus 9. And then this w and minus 3 make my second group. Once we get here, we're going to set each part equal to 0. That's all. So if I subtract 9 from both sides, I get 2w equals negative 9. If I divide by 2, I actually get negative 4.5. And normally we use improper fractions for these, but you can go ahead and get a decimal with the application problems. For the second one, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So we get 3 for our second option. Since we have a negative, we're going to eliminate this negative 4.5. And that tells me my width is 3 meters. So going back up to our diagram, if my width is 3, that means my length is 2 times 3 plus 3, which gives me 6 plus 3 or 9. So my length will be 9 meters. Go ahead and try the guided practice problems, the next two. If you have questions on them, stop by my room and see me.